This has been happening ever since we started teaching the LSAT. People
Oh,
see
yeah.
the score as an assessment of their
Yep.
self-worth. That's why people ask, "Oh, is the LSAT an IQ test? Will this reveal who I am?" Hello and welcome to episode 489 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Coming up on Saturday, Wednesday, January 15th is the January LSAT. Good luck to all of you who are taking that. On Saturday, January 18th, we're going to have a free class. That's Saturday Brunch LR with Abby.
Everybody loves Abby. Go check out that class. Just go to lsatdemon.com/free if you want to register for that free class again on Saturday, January 18th. What's on the agenda today?
Yeah, so our first email is from Andrea. It's feet to the fire.
All right, we got a note here that says Andrea recently decided to delay her applications for a year. Here is the email from Andrea. She says, "My new plan starts with identifying my dream schools. Instead of focusing solely on getting into any law school that will give me money, I now want to ensure I attend a great law school at a great price. Based on my research, to have a strong chance of admission and qualify for substantial scholarships at these schools, I need to score between 173 and 175 on the LSAT. My commitment to this new approach is simple. I am determined to achieve that LSAT score range. If I find myself unwilling to put in the time and effort to reach a 175, then I'll take it as a sign that I might not want this career path as much as I think I do, and then pivot. I believe this strategy will hold my feet to the fire and make the study process have more intention. Getting to this higher score will be much harder than my initial 165 goal, and that's the point. I think it'll make me a better lawyer and more successful in the end. The only thing I'm a little nervous about is how to succinctly explain this decision to others when they ask, so, when are you going to law school? It's not a huge concern, but I'd love any advice you have for responding to those kinds of questions. What do you think for Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, Andrea's explanation or thought process makes a lot of sense to me, but I can see a lot of other people wondering, why the heck are you delaying? What's the big deal? I
Mom
mean,
and dad,
yeah,
friends, co-workers. She's been working on this for a while. She just recently decided to delay her applications for another year. Sometimes in that situation, you get friends and family saying, "Hey, weren't you going to go to law school?"
yeah. I mean, I don't want to apply until I can get into some of the best schools in the country. Is that
Yeah, I'm
enough of an
I'm
explanation?
waiting to go until the price is right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what you're doing, right, Andrea? You're deciding that you want to go to a better school at a better price. Instead of just getting in somewhere, you're wanting to go to one of the best schools in the country at a reasonable discount, and they give huge discounts. I would say that. I mean, like, that's the truth. So just tell them that.
Hmm.
I need the best LSAT I can get so that I can pay the right price at the right school. And if they don't understand that, I don't know, maybe refer them to lsatdemon.com/scholarships, because our scholarship estimator, I think, does a pretty good job of communicating the pricing games that law schools are playing.
Yeah, I think if you could even delve into some of these antics, right? Explain that most schools charge only 5 to 10% of the class full tuition.
Yeah.
I think that shocks people. That
M-
what? What are you
yeah.
talking about?
Many schools are giving full ride scholarships to 25% of the class, or 30 or 35% of the class.
Yeah.
There are many schools where there are more people there on a full ride than are there paying full price. And Yeah, if you explain that to folks, then hopefully they should get it. I mean,
Hmm.
because we're not talking about, $4,000 a semester here. We're talking about shit, $40,000 a semester at
Yeah.
some schools.
Yeah.
And so, there's just so many zeros involved that you really do want to make sure that you're going to the right school at the right price.
Hmm.
Good job, Andrea. Keep going.
Yeah.
Any concerns about Andrea's email? I have one, I guess.
Something about the strict commitment to that score range or
Yeah,
something.
very specific score goals. I just we've seen it too many times that people let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that they just decide in advance that I need this 175 or bust. And as much as I admire your commitment, you do have to get to 165 before you can get to 170 before you can get to 175. And I don't know where you are right now, Andrea, because you haven't told us, what your current PTs are. But if you're currently looking at a 140 or a 150, then there are lots of intermediate steps in between you and your 175. So just don't get discouraged if you have a large, mountain to climb. You're just gonna do that one step at a time, right?
Yeah, it's tough though, right? Because you do have to understand where you want to get to get in at a decent price. So how do you balance that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, she has sort of set this arbitrary, you know, look at her very first line. My new plan starts with identifying my dream schools. Well, wait a second. What kind of a lawyer do you want to be? Everybody's dream school is Harvard and Stanford and
Hmm.
Yale.
Hmm.
But do you actually need to go to Harvard and Stanford and Yale? I mean, what are Harvard, Stanford, and Yale going to do for you that NYU or Berkeley aren't? And then what are NYU and Berkeley going to do for you that UCLA and USC and I don't know, George Washington aren't like
Yeah.
what it's just that there's a continuum of schools and this binary type of thinking where it's like I have to have a 175 to go to my dream school. That by itself makes me wonder whether, your whole lawyer plan is really that fleshed out
Mm.
because most lawyers don't need to go to the premier schools. And so it seems sad to me that Andrea would be like, if she really knows that she wants to go be a lawyer of a certain type. Now, if
Hmm.
she wants to be masters of the universe, if she wants to be a law professor, or if she wants to be a federal judge, or if she wants to be certain kinds of big law attorneys, then yeah, okay, maybe you do actually need to go to those places. But for the majority of lawyers, they don't need to go to those kinds of places. And it could very well be that a 165 gets you a full ride to a school that would absolutely get you to whatever your career goals actually are. So instead of starting with identifying your dream schools, Andrea, I would be starting with your career goals and figure out what kinds of schools you actually need to go to in order to achieve those particular goals. And hopefully
Interesting.
she already thought this all through. Hopefully she's like, yeah, no, I have, but I these dream schools are really what's required.
Yeah, hopefully so, but I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of people. So here's the issue then. So 173 to 175, those numbers aren't arbitrary or as that arbitrary if you've correctly identified the schools, because you just identify the schools and you say, okay, what range roughly do I need to get into to go to that school and go for free?
Right.
But what is arbitrary is the selection of those schools. And I'm sure a ton of people do that. I'm only going to go to the top 10 or not go at all.
Oh yeah, and you see
And
this
it's
all
like,
over the
wait,
internet.
why? Why?
It's
What is it about school 11 that doesn't get it done for you?
absolutely.
Because the
Oh,
goal is
there's
not actually clarified. Yeah.
yeah, and there's people that are like, top 25 or bust. And then there's
Meh.
people that are top 14 or bust. And then there's
Yeah.
top 10 or bust and T6 or bust. And then there's people
T3.
who are Harvard, Stanford, Yale or bust. And then there's
Yeah.
people who are Yale or nothing. And it's like, okay, well, I don't think any of you are probably actually correct
Yeah.
unless you have extremely specific goals. I think you should be a little more mercenary with your choice of law schools, is what I'm saying. So, like, don't we want Andrea applying broadly anyway?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
So, Andrea, I want you to get the best LSAT you can possibly achieve. Absolutely. Because that's going to open doors, all kinds of doors.
Mhm.
But I really don't want you getting locked into particular schools too early in the process. Anyway,
Mhm.
write us
Yeah.
back, find us at thinkinglsat.com and, give us maybe some more information about what you're really trying to do. Because at this point, my hypothesis would be, really? Do you really need to go to those? I don't know.
Mhm.
Broaden your net is
Yeah.
constant advice. Anyway, next one is from Anonymous. The subject is letters of recommendation advice.
Happy New Year. I'm curious if you can speak to letters of recommendation and what to do if you don't have a professor to ask for a letter. I've been out of school for almost a year now and have not kept in touch with any professors or stood out in a significant way in that I feel that they remember my work. The people I would like to ask include my current supervisor and in-house counsel I have worked with at my current job who I feel knows my work ethic and character, and an old internship supervisor I have kept in touch with. Okay, so two work contacts.
Totally fine.
Next question is, do you think that these letters will suffice? You're saying yes. What kinds of things should I be looking for, keeping in mind while asking?
Just ask them sooner than you think because it might take a long time. They might put the ball back in your court and say, hey, draft it for me, then send it back. Then I'll edit it and send it in. They just could take forever to get it done. Um, you might ask these people, and only one of them even responds to you, which might tell you that you need to go back to the drawing board and think of some other people that you could ask. You might consider asking 3 or 4 people instead of just these 2 people and seeing who responds the most enthusiastically.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest along those lines to ask in person so you can see that reaction because
Mm,
email response is going to hide much of that.
mhm. Sure. Telephone, if you can't get there in person, maybe you
Yeah,
get a little tone of voice.
yeah,
Uh, Otherwise, I think you just gotta ask. I mean, it's pretty common that people have to write letters of recommendation for employees who are going off to grad school, so shouldn't be shocking.
yeah. I would also ask more than these two people because you don't have to use every letter you get. And if either one of these individuals takes too long, you already have a backup. You then don't have to go find a backup.
Oh, yeah, I would prefer you're asking 3 or 4 or 5 people, and then when the letters are in, you can choose which letters to send,
Hmm.
and you might learn something on, the enthusiasm with which people write this letter. You might you might learn something about your relationship with that person that you didn't previously know.
Yep. This next one is also from Anonymous. The subject is submit slightly nepoy letter of rec.
Uh,
Nepotism.
yeah, nepo-y, I think is what they're trying to say there.
Yeah, yeah.
Should they submit a slightly nepo-y letter of recommendation? I don't know. My gut says no, but let's hear the details. Says, hey, Ben and Nathan, a few years ago, I had an internship that happened to be under the supervision of one of my parents' friends. Oh, well, that's fine. Who
They won't
cares?
even know, I don't think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not unless they say it. And let
I've known Tommy since he was 2. Yeah.
yeah, that might not be the best. But I mean, that type of shit happens all the time. How can that possibly hold you back?
Mhm.
My first job ever was because my dad knew somebody and got me a job working at the
Mhm.
pizza restaurant when I was 16.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's just not like, is that shameful? It doesn't seem shameful to me. I was working.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, Anonymous continues and says, it wasn't the reason I got the job, but it is how I found out about the opportunity, which is also very common. Since I performed well in that internship, I asked my supervisor to write me a letter of recommendation for my law school applications. After submitting it to LSAC, he sent it to me unprompted to read. And there was a section where he discusses how he's been close friends with my parents since before I was born and watched me grow up as a child. The rest of the letter is extremely positive and says a lot of valuable things about my character and work ethic, but I'm worried that that part will rub admissions officers the wrong way and suggest that I got the internship and positive recommendation due to connections rather than merit. Would you guys suggest I submit this letter in addition to 2 letters from professors or not? Well, do you actually need 3 letters? I mean, what are your best 2 out of the 3? If the professors each say enthusiastic things, and especially if they say slightly different things, I don't know, they're writing about different aspects of your candidacy or abilities or whatever, then maybe the professors are sufficient. You just don't even need to worry about this one. Alternatively, maybe you need to drop one of the professors and keep this because it's kind of like a professional experience alongside an academic. I don't know. I just don't know why you need 3 letters.
What do you think about the first sentence a few years ago?
Mm, I didn't notice that part. Yeah, what have you been doing since then? I mean, I guess if it was an internship during your freshman year or something, then that kind of makes sense. But and I guess it depends on, yeah, what kind of internship is that? If you've been out of school for a while, then it's like, well, wait a second. Why are you giving me an internship letter of recommendation instead of a real job,
Like a recent, like
a
this
recent
year? Yeah.
job? Yeah.
What's your
Hmm.
supervisor today think of you?
Yeah. And if you're I guess it makes more sense, I think, if you're just like still an undergrad or just graduating,
Hmm.
then that internship could have been one of the most valuable things you did during your college experience, and maybe that's perfectly fine. What about having this recommender just take that part out?
Hmm.
It's not too late to amend that letter. I mean, they can upload a new letter, then you can just choose to have that letter submitted instead of the old letter. I don't know if you have to call LSAC to make that happen or whatever, but it should be doable. And it sounds like all they would have to do is just like take that part out.
It's got to be relatively easy, I assume. People must want to change letters every now and then.
Yeah.
Hmm.
How much do you think it really matters?
Not that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People love to, really focus on these details. And yeah, the details can matter if all else is equal. But if you've got the right LSAT, the right GPA, you're applying broadly, if your personal statement makes you seem like a mature grown up who's going to be successful in law school and in law, the fact that one of your recommenders knew you since you were a kid, I feel like it could probably help you just as much as it could hurt you. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
like,
and well, let's talk about what you mean by hurt too, because really, we're not talking about a letter that says something negative about you.
no, or
We're just
something
saying
that,
it's just not as potentially positive because what weight should they give it?
and it's not a clear like error of judgment where you have your
Sure.
mom write you a letter of
Yeah.
recommendation,
Yeah. Yeah.
a family friend getting you that job. I mean, and then saying how you kicked ass at the job, I think you're probably fine.
Mhm.
Nothing to worry about that much, but if everything else is done and you want to just, make sure that you're doing everything as well as you possibly could, I would probably just ask them to redraft it and just leave that part out of it. Just say, "Hey, I'm just I don't know what you think, but the nepotism thing makes me think that they might discount thank you so much for your amazing thoughtful words, wow, it's really humbling that you're saying all those nice things about me. I'm just a little bit worried about this part. Do you think you could
The nepo part.
I'm worried about the nepo part. Could you take that part out?
Yeah.
It seems like there's somebody who wants to go to bat for you, so I can't imagine that they're going to mind.
Cool.
Next one is from Maya. The subject is seeking advice on pacing and stress in reading comprehension.
While I understand that focusing too much on the clock can be counterproductive, I've realized that I often spend too much time on the first passage, even though it's usually the easiest. This creates a domino effect. Once I realize I've wasted time, I feel stressed, which makes it harder to focus on the rest of the section.
Stop looking at the clock. Your problem is that you're looking at the clock. None of this stress would happen if you didn't look at the clock. Stop realizing you've wasted time. You haven't wasted time, by the way. You've taken whatever time is necessary to understand the passage so that you can correctly answer every single one of the questions in that first passage. Is the first passage normally the easiest? Yes. Do students miss questions in the first passage all the fucking time? Yes. You're going to separate yourself from the field, Maya, by getting all the questions in the first passage right. I give zero shits how long that took you. I don't want you to even know how long it took you. Most people are going to run out of time at some point during the reading comprehension. That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is if you go too fast through the first passage and miss some of those questions. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you, Ben, as you're reading Maya's email, but this is the type of thing that it's like, you could tell from the first word of her email. While I understand, it's like, okay, do you really understand? Because you're not, people always push back on this like accuracy, only accuracy, ignore the clock advice. People love to say, yeah, but still. And that's what Maya's doing here.
Yeah, it's this. What is it? They want to do both. They want to find the perfect solution, which in their minds is, I'm not going to worry about the clock that much,
Yeah.
but I'm
But
going
I
to do
still
it a
have to worry
little.
about the clock, right?
Yeah, like a little. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I'm just looking at it. I'm just checking
It is still a
it.
time section, and I do still have to, make sure that I manage my time. It's like,
I'm not gonna worry about it, but I'm gonna manage it. Yeah, no, we're asking you to fully let it go.
turn off the clock. When you start the section, you turn the clock off. All you have to do is click it. The clock goes away. People who do this have less stress.
And they naturally go faster. Not right away,
Right.
but they get questions more right, and they go faster. Okay, well, I mean, the rest of this email is just kind of emphasizing the problems with looking at the clock and giving it some respect when
Let's
you
hear
should
it.
give it none.
Yeah.
He says, additionally, I think the stress of entering the RC section makes it harder for me to lock in on the first passage. Okay, I think that stress is partly coming because you've had these anxiety ridden sections in the past, which takes me longer to complete the section. Okay, by the time I reach the last two passages, I'm rushing because I know I'm short on time. Oddly enough, okay, then that's just revealing that you feel like you need to finish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, this is someone who has not. We see this all the time. This is somebody who is claiming to understand our advice,
Mm-hmm.
but then not actually implementing it. They're just doing the, yeah, but still. Oh, but that doesn't apply to me, right?
And I'm not done. I'm short on time.
Yeah.
I haven't finished.
It's just like the advice is just going right past. She thinks she's listening to it, but she's really not.
Mm-hmm. She continues, oddly enough, even though these passages are typically harder, I often do well in them. I wonder what you mean by well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, often and well. You know, what does often mean? Often means sometimes.
Yep.
Well,
what is well?
How well? It's like, oh, well, I mean, sometimes I get 5 out of 6 right.
Yeah, or 4 out of 6 or 4 out of 7.
Yeah, sometimes I get 4 out of 7 right. I mean, that's pretty good, right? That's that's fucking luck. That's just luck.
Yeah.
You're not yes, I know that you sometimes get 6 out of 6, but that can be partially lucky as well. It's also true that the LSAT is generally easy. So, I'm not doubting your ability to do the harder passages, Maya. I'm not doubting that at all. But I am telling you, I'm trying to say it as clearly as possible. And sometimes we have to say the same thing 10 different ways in order for it to like really register with people. But I am telling you, Maya, that you need to start ignoring the clock entirely. Just forget about the time entirely. Just answer the damn questions. And if you do, you should have less stress and the test should actually start to become easier.
Yes, and that necessarily means that your goal is no longer to finish.
Right.
So there's no such thing as being short on time.
Right.
You have the time that you have, you answer the questions that you can answer, and then the
Right.
section ends. And that's
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
She goes on. I mean, she's going to finish. She's going to wrap up by asking us to give the exact opposite of the advice that we
Yeah.
actually give. So here it
Okay.
comes.
Yeah. She says, I often do well on these passages, the harder ones at the end, likely because I'm forced to move through them quickly and stay focused.
No, because they're easy and because you're sometimes getting lucky. Go
Yep.
ahead.
She says, I want to fix this. Do you have any recommendations on how to keep a steady pace throughout RC, avoid wasting time, and reduce the stress that builds as I work? Yes, the advice is stop thinking about the
Yeah.
clock. And by the way, it is going to come up. You're going to hide the clock. You're going to be doing a passage and you're going to feel like, oh, I think that took longer than it should have. You're going to think something like that.
Yep.
And you're going to want to check the time or
Yep.
you're going to want to, whatever it is. Every time that thought comes up, you have to just tell yourself, that doesn't matter. My job is to do the next question, and my job is not to finish.
It's lawyer shit. Your
In
job
fact,
is to do accurate legal work. Your job
yeah,
is to answer each question correctly.
yeah. I
And
do. Sorry,
go ahead.
go ahead. I just want to say again, your job is not to finish. In other words, if
Right.
you are finishing, you're almost certainly doing it wrong because the
Yeah.
only people who should be finishing are getting all every question or almost every question except maybe one or two correct, and they're already scoring in the 170s.
Yeah. Yeah. 175. I mean, you
Yeah.
like not even low 170s. You can
Yeah.
get into the low 170s without finishing. I think you can
Mhm.
get into the 170s with only doing 3 passages.
Well, technically, you can get a 180 without finishing. You can
If you
miss through.
guess the last passage correctly. Yeah. But you
Yeah.
can, I mean, the
No,
3
no, no.
passages.
Sorry, to be clear,
Oh.
you can miss 3 questions on the LSAT.
Oh, and get a 180. I see.
You can get
Yeah.
180. So if you don't finish the
Yeah.
last 3 questions in reading comp and get them all wrong, you can still get a 180.
Okay. And anyway, to get to a 170 or a 175, which, 175 is solidly 99th percentile. So literally one person out of 100 is going to score 175 or higher.
Mhm.
And for that one person, even you probably don't need to be finishing. What you really need to be doing is to run the table. Like you
Mhm.
don't get higher than that by missing very many questions.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be accurate in order to score higher than what you're scoring right now. Maya, you're going to have to be more accurate to score higher than what you're scoring right now. Your problem is not pacing. Your problem is that you're worried about the pacing. It's like people who listen to us and then say, yeah, but can I get tips on how to keep a steady pace? No, no, you can't because you're not listening. Pace isn't part of the equation. Pace is questions per time. We don't want questions per time. We want correct questions, correct answers. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that
Yeah.
you should be focusing on. Her next thing she wants, how do I avoid wasting time? Well, yeah, stop thinking about time. And as far as avoiding, reducing the stress that builds as she's working, well, that's why we tell you to ignore the time. Stop trying to finish the sections. That shouldn't ever even be your goal. Your goal is to do accurate legal work until the time runs out.
Yep.
And then you shouldn't feel stressed because you should feel calm. You're doing the questions carefully. You're answering the questions with a high degree of confidence. You're reading the passages carefully enough to really understand what's there. When you get to the questions, you can predict the answer to half the questions. The wrong answers look like garbage because they are garbage. You're answering the questions fairly easily. Every once in a while, you have to refer back to the passage to pick up some details or something, just to double check something. But then you feel good about the answer that you're picking because you double checked. Okay, yep, that's definitely there in the passage. Boom, that's correct. Next question, please. And then you don't have stress. If you do it our way, you don't have the stress. But if you continue to insist on managing your time, managing your pacing, then you're causing that stress to yourself. And it's extremely common. So I'm not yelling really specifically at Maya. I'm yelling at all the people who are like Maya, who
Yeah.
continue to insist on doing it this way. I mean, I want to be clear that we transform people's LSAT scores. We're not about incremental improvement at LSAT Demon. We're about like leaps and bounds. And the only way that you're going to improve by leaps and bounds is that you just realize that you have to be accurate. If you are accurate, then you'll start to see that the LSAT is easy, and it is easy, and it will become easy for you. But right now, you're making it hard by thinking about the time. So it's your choice whether you want to really do it our way or not do it our way. Good luck, whatever you decide.
Agreed. The next one is from Anonymous. The subject is scared and maybe in my own way.
Huh. Anonymous
Scared.
says, I'm really embarrassed to confess this, but I have only been practicing individual questions and or doing untimed LR sections on Law Hub. I'm truly scared of taking full practice tests. I know that if I don't like my score on that full practice test, I will feel shattered. I keep pushing it off. And to make things more concerning, although I have been drilling and taking practice sections, LR has just now clicked for me after taking a month break, oddly enough. I am just now pushing back on arguments and becoming critical of the LR passages. It's been 10 months since I first started studying. I'm embarrassed because my fear is holding me back. I want to start using LSAT Demon. Where should I begin?
Okay. Well, acknowledging the situation is a great first step, and that's what
Yeah.
you're doing here. I noticed in your second sentence, you said, I'm truly scared of taking full practice tests. I guess as soon as Nate, you read that, my reaction was, well, you don't have to start there.
No,
You could take a timed section. That's it. You do say that you're taking practice sections, but it sounds like they're just
untimed.
untimed, and you just need to do it timed. And yeah, this is actually related to what Maya is doing.
Yeah,
Your goal is centered on the score.
right.
It should not have anything to do with the score or how many questions you completed. You should focus 100% of your energy on what percentage of questions did I get right that I attempted.
Yeah, literally. So I do want you, Anonymous, to do a timed section. I mean,
Mhm,
I want you to start doing your prep in LSAT Demon instead of in Law Hub. And
mhm,
the main reason why I want you to do that is that our explanations are way better. And we have an amazing team of tutors behind the ask button who
mhm,
are there to help you. By the
mhm.
way, we should do an ask button update.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
check it out.
yeah, so I wanted to say congratulations to our amazing team of, geez, what do we have now, Ben? A dozen, 20 people working on the ask button? I can't believe how many
Yeah,
people we have now working on ask.
yeah.
But they are just constantly responding to people's questions. I can see right now that Eric is in there and Beatrice are both in there
Mhm.
responding to questions that students have asked. The oldest question in the queue right now is from 2 hours ago. And we were at inbox zero last night at
Mm.
8:05 p.m. We had no questions in the queue. And
Mm.
that's even with Like how many we're receiving hundreds of questions per day,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and the team is on top of it. We're down to 0.
Hmm.
That's happening regularly. So, that's not happening at Law Hub. First of all, our explanations are way better. Second,
Yeah.
we have a whole team of tutors that are there to help you. So please do your prep in LSAT Demon if you want to get the kind of help that's going to lead to actual understanding. And I want to shout out Billy and the amazing Ask Button team because they're just crushing it.
Hmm.
So please give it a shot. By the way, even if you have an LSAT Demon free account, you can use our Ask Button and you can communicate with our team of tutors. And I think you'll be surprised at how fast and how good that help is. It's secretly, not so secretly, the best feature of the Demon is our Ask Button.
Hmm.
Anyway, to get back to anonymous, you know, you're not the only one who is afraid of doing timed sections. But what I really want, I want you to change the way you approach like what's the purpose of doing a timed section?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and really the purpose of it is to practice ignoring the clock. Literally practice starting the section, you see the clock ticking, and you move the mouse up there and you click the clock so that
You
the clock
hide
goes
it.
away.
Yep.
You're going to hide the clock. And that's part of why we do timed sections, because I want that to just be routine. And I want you to do that on your official test. When you take your official test, the first thing that you do is you just turn off that clock.
Yep.
Just hide it. I guess I shouldn't say turn off because it doesn't actually turn off the clock, does it? But it just hides the clock so you don't have to
It
see it
hides the
anymore.
clock. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then your goal during the section is not to finish, nor is it to achieve any score. The only thing we care about is how many in a row did you get right at the beginning of the section? And what was your percentage accuracy on the questions you attempted at the end of the section?
Yep.
Can you get 5 out of the first 5? Can you get 10 out of the first 10? Can you get 14 or 15 out of the first 15? If you can do those intermediate goals, then you're definitely making progress. The only thing you can do wrong is race the clock, finish the section and you got 12 right.
Yeah.
That's garbage. I would much rather you run out of time on question 8, but you got 1 through 8 correct. That's so much better than finishing the section and getting 12 or even 15 right.
Yeah.
Because you're just not really understanding what you're doing. You're half guessing on all these questions and you get some of them right, you get some of them wrong, but you're not learning anything. You're not actually doing it. You're just not doing high quality legal work. I
Yeah.
want you to learn to do legal work. When you're doing legal work, you're ignoring the clock. I mean, you're just doing it right.
Couldn't agree more. Change your goal. Yeah.
Um, you're not alone, Anonymous. I think that if you came to any of our, come to our free classes, Anonymous, go to Abby's free class coming up, the thing that we shouted out at the top of the show. Go to that class and talk to Abby, talk to the TAs who are there, talk to fellow Demon students. You are not alone. Everybody, not everybody, but many, many people are afraid of taking time sections. They're afraid of doing full tests. They've just got all this stress and anxiety built up. But one way that we're able to take people from 135 to 165 is that they learn, oh, I'm not judging myself on the 135. I'm just learning the discipline. I'm learning the practice of slow down, really understand what I'm reading, answer the questions correctly, comfortable running out of time at the end of the section because who cares? I mean, until I get to 178, who cares about those ones? Those are the harder questions, by the way. The ones at the end of the section are harder. Why are you rushing to get to those? Instead, just answer all the questions at the beginning accurately.
Hmm.
And just forget about the clock entirely. So we do want you to do a mix, Anonymous, untimed drilling and timed sections with thorough review of all of your mistakes. But when you're doing those time sections, you're not racing the clock. You're not shooting for any particular score. We're not evaluating your worth. We're just letting you practice ignoring the clock. And that's what people are afraid of, right? I mean, that's literally what Anonymous is saying here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to feel shattered if they
Yeah.
get a bad score.
This has been happening ever since we started teaching the LSAT. People
Oh,
see
yeah.
the score as an assessment of their
Yep.
self-worth. That's why people ask, oh, is the LSAT an IQ test? Will this reveal
Right.
who I am? No, it won't. It can't. How could people go up 40 points and
Right.
it be an innate
Right.
assessment of your innate abilities? Right?
Yeah,
It's just-
no, it's not. It's a extremely learnable test. And one of the main skills that you have to learn is, oh, wow, these questions are solvable. I have to slow down enough so that I really understand them.
Mhm.
I understand the passage. I understand the question that they're asking me about that passage. And I understand how the right answer is the only answer that actually answers that question based on this record. And when you learn to do that kind of solid, careful legal work, sky's the limit on what happens to your score. Reasonable minds can disagree on this. I remember having debates with my students about it because when I used to teach in person, the first thing I would do in every class is I would just give a full length practice test timed.
Mm-hmm.
And my point in doing it was, hey, let's get one data point on the record. Let's desensitize ourselves to the ticking clock starting right now. Like, let's just fucking get over it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you signed up for this class, you paid money to be
Here
here.
you go. Yeah.
Guess what? We're doing a full practice test right now.
Yeah.
And I think that I still actually think that had a lot of merit because it's like, look, you're going to have to do it eventually. Why not do it today?
Mm-hmm.
But students would sometimes take the wrong message from it, right? Because they would be thinking that it's an IQ test. This is testing my potential.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not testing your potential. I'm just showing you a data point of how you performed right now.
Yeah.
And I want you to learn that if you race the clock, if you try to manage your time, it'll feel super stressful and you won't score as high as you would if you just ignore the clock. I'll still be timing you, but you're going to ignore the clock.
Yeah.
And that's where your best performance is going to come from. So that's why I still think it's a good idea to do the timed sections or time tests early on in your process, just so that you don't wait forever to do. Like, people build it up to be this big thing. It's like, it's not a big thing. We've got 80 practice tests that we can play with. Let's just go ahead and do one.
Well, it's like jumping in the pool versus walking down the ladder, right?
Oh,
The pool's cold
slowly
and you're just
walking in.
feeling
Yeah.
walking out to the beach. You're like, oh, there's another wave and that was freezing. No,
The key is run and just dive in head first. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everything's fine.
No,
But-
I'm literally saying desensitize yourself by just doing it. But you do have to go in with the right mindset of, okay, this is not like assessing my entire legal future.
No. Or anything
As Ben
else.
said,
Yeah.
people sometimes improve by 30, 35, even we've seen 40-point improvements. The scale only goes from 120 to 180. There's 60 points in the scale, and we've seen people improve by 40.
Yeah.
So how could it possibly be an intelligence test? It's just something that you need to practice.
It's funny. When I was starting, I did the same thing. I had people take a test the first day of class. And it was also because, remember, with games, it felt like that was a section that people were avoiding actively.
Yep.
They just, I don't want to do that. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, let's do the test. And
Did you ever
that's
see
gonna
people
force you to
stop?
do games. Yeah.
Did you ever see people just give up?
Yep. They just
They would work on
put
it
their
for
pencil down.
90 seconds, and then they would just put their pencil down.
Yeah.
I was like, what? What are
Yeah.
you doing? You're just going to sit there? You're not even going to try?
For 35 minutes.
35 minutes? Just nope, can't do it. Nope. People just bounce off of it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. People do that, though, with just the LSAT generally. I mean, they're just like, I can't. It's the clock. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Final words for Anonymous?
Studying the demon, do a timed section. You got this. Focus, change your goals. Yeah.
Use the ask button.
Yeah.
I dare you. Use our ask button. Let Billy and our amazing team help you. Next one is from Connor, and the subject is taking notes during review.
Hey, Ben and Nathan, I was curious where you guys stand on taking notes while reviewing. I've been studying consistently with the demon for just about 3 months now and have been making a lot of progress. Recently, I've seen others meticulously take notes during review, for example, to address wrong answers and to know how to attack the different question types. I've never taken notes while reviewing. Rather, I take the time to fully understand why my answer was incorrect and why the right answer is completely correct.
Good.
Yeah, that is great. I wanted to know if you guys see any value in taking notes during review and if this will help me or would not be a good use of my time since I'm already making good progress as is. I know writing things down helps you remember concepts better, but is that
Mm,
necessary for LSAT review? Thank you guys for everything you do.
I don't think so. I just don't think it's helpful.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. I do. There is. So what happens, right? Sometimes people write a question to the Ask team, and as they're writing,
Mm,
they make connections that they weren't making when they weren't forced to put their ideas into a concrete form. So I think there can be some value there. My worry is that when people write notes, I mean, I had the same concern about law school and just undergrad in general. There would be people frantically writing down
yeah.
whatever the professor was saying. And it's like, oh, it's just taking it's like something you should be doing right now. And you're just kicking the can down the road. You're saying, I'll deal with that
Oh,
later,
yeah.
as opposed to, no, 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 let me wait until it clicks right now. And I
Yeah.
get my mind wrapped around it.
Yeah. Copying down what the professor said or copying down what we said in our explanation
Yes, exactly.
is not actually understanding it.
No,
And
no, no.
I think even in law school, if you can just get the balls to raise your hand instead
Yeah.
and like engage,
Yes,
ask a
100%.
question. Asking a question is so much better than any amount of note taking. And I think that that's true on your LSAT prep as well. I think that our students should be using the ask button sometimes. And I think, as Ben says, half the time when you go to write a question, you're going to go, oh, I
Yeah,
thought it said this. But
yeah.
as I'm writing this question, I realized that it said that. And now the right answer makes perfect sense. And this wrong answer no longer makes any sense at all. And I've answered it myself, but through the process of writing a question, not through the process of
Yeah, you're
taking
engaging.
notes.
Yeah, you're trying to unpack it. You're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what is going on there versus note taking, which is often Connor actually kind of alludes to this. It says, I know writing things down helps you remember concepts better. There are
Yeah.
so few concepts on the
Right.
LSAT that we actually need to know. It's really knowing a few concepts really well because we do them over and over again. And so
Yeah.
you have to understand what you're doing and make it click and
Yeah.
then do it again. It's not like you need to memorize vocabulary
Yeah.
or anything
And
like that.
question types don't matter nearly as much as people think they do. And I think this comes from misguided LSAT prep that tells people to read the question first.
Mhm.
They then think that the LSAT is highly technical and that you really need to be thinking about process all the time instead of just understanding what it says on the damn page.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like how many times are you going to write down what you're supposed to be looking for on a must be true question?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like very simple rubrics for each question type. And
Mhm.
even then, if you don't understand the record, I don't care how well you understand the question type.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and note taking on the record wouldn't make any sense You're going to be like, oh, well, dioxin causes reproductive abnormalities in fish downstream from the paper mill.
No, it's thinking about what it implies and
Like,
what is exactly going on,
right.
not these notes to remember.
Right. What are you going to remember? Like remembering the question doesn't do anything for you. Understanding the question. Could you explain it to me? Could you explain it to Ben? Could you explain it to somebody else? Why is that right answer perfectly correct? Why are the wrong answers perfectly wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like that's what Connor has been naturally doing.
Yeah.
So then I definitely don't want Connor changing his process to start writing useless notes. I really think people take notes as an excuse for not understanding stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can just imagine people writing the necessary condition is the one that is implied by the sufficient condition. And it's like, okay, can you explain that to me in common sense terms?
Like, what does that mean? Give me an example. Yeah, exactly.
And they
Yeah.
still don't get it. It's like, yeah, okay, well then all those notes, just throw them out the window because you're just
No.
not really understanding it. Get a
Mhm.
study partner, explain those questions to your study partner. Use our ask button to ask questions of our amazing team if you're unsure. Don't care if you never take a single note in your entire LSAT prep.
All right. So this next email was shared to us by Abby, the same person who's going to be teaching the free class this
Yeah.
month. And Eric writes, this is worth noting that some law schools are willing to pay for CAS report fees.
This is coming from Rachel Smith. Apparently, she is a recruitment coordinator at the College of Law at the University of Nebraska. It says, Happy New Year. 2025 will bring all sorts of new things for you. Oh my God. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just like the omit.
Yeah.
That sentence could be omitted. That doesn't say anything.
There's
Jesus
nothing.
Christ.
Yeah.
You may be looking forward to graduations, weddings, and other beginnings, ... including law school, including starting law school.
You may be.
Omit that first paragraph. Here in Nebraska Law, we look forward to welcoming a fabulous new class next fall! ! Those students will receive the best possible legal education in a uniquely collaborative and positive atmosphere.
Okay. Nebraska is claiming to offer the best possible legal education.
Yeah. It
Makes
depends
sense.
on where you draw the borders on that, I suppose. You know, it might be the best possible legal education within the state of Nebraska, but US News would beg to differ about whether it is the best possible legal education. Anyway, our vision is to train you to be a leader who embraces inclusiveness, advances justice, and serves with integrity as you solve the legal problems you find most compelling. Embraces inclusiveness is their number one thing on the email. Anyway.
The last part, the legal problems you find most compelling. It's not going to be the legal problems you find most compelling. It's going to be the legal problems your firm or your clients find most compelling, which may be utterly abhorrent to you. I don't know.
Totally.
But anyway.
Especially if you want to make money.
Yeah.
They continue, but first we need you to apply with us. Oh, wow. So this is an unsolicited email. Abby apparently has not applied to University of Nebraska College of Law. She's just out there fishing. She says, because we want to celebrate the new year, we have a gift for you.
Okay. That's just
Lies.
Lie. Yeah. Wait, that's not why you're giving this gift. You're giving the gift to get the application, not because you're celebrating the new year and have a sudden bounty of goodwill.
Also, it's not a fucking gift. You're trying to sell Abby a very expensive degree. Anyway, this gift. If you're one of the first 250 people to click the link below, you can claim a golden ticket that gives you 2 codes. One is for an application fee waiver worth $50, and the other is a credential assembly service report fee waiver worth $45. Combined, that is a $95 savings when you apply to Nebraska Law and then a big red button, claim your golden ticket. Should have been a gold button. Really? I mean, I I would have had that be a golden ticket
Yeah.
button, but that's just me. Um, you'll have
You
until
wouldn't have
your
that button, Nathan. You wouldn't have claim your golden ticket. So you wouldn't.
I might. I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on how much I was trying to sell.
Yeah.
This could be. Hey, I think we have to presume that this works.
They're doing it. Yeah. Okay. Hmm.
Um, it's not going to work on Abby,
Yeah.
and hopefully, it doesn't work on very many of our listeners. But this would absolutely work. Otherwise, I don't think she's going to be doing it. At least she's not going to be doing it for long. Um, You'll have until our application deadline, which is March 1st, to use your fee waivers. Are you ready to apply? We can hardly wait. Happy New Year! Exclamation point. That's 3 exclamation points in this email. And that is from Rachel Smith, recruitment coordinator. I'm not a hater. I mean, this is just a thirsty law school.
It's like all other law schools.
Abby has really good LSAT scores on record. And Abby probably checked the box for, yes, I want to be in the, what do they call that service again? What is the candidate referral service.
Candidate referral.
Yep.
Service.
And it's part of your credential assembly service, part of your LSAC account. And you click yes for the candidate referral service. And that's what allows people like Rachel Smith to spam you unsolicited offers to apply and, gifts like this. It is interesting that I believe so the $50 application fee waiver is not a gift at all. That's just them saying, okay, we're not going to charge you $50.
Yep. So it's not worth 50.
That's not worth, it's worth nothing because they want Abby's application clearly. And then the credential assembly service report fee waiver, I believe that that's actually $45 that Nebraska is willing to pay LSAC in order to get that report from LSAC, which is necessary in order for them to get Abby's LSAT score, personal statement, letters of recommendation, transcripts, all that shit. There is a $45 fee, which normally Abby would have to pay to LSAC. And I think that they are going to pay it to LSAC because that's how much they want Abby's application.
Yeah. Which, okay, it's something. But at the same time, when you think about their marketing budget, to them, it's just like a cost
nothing.
per click, right? It's what are you going to pay for your lead? Yeah.
No, it's nothing. I mean, 250, they're going to give away. It's the first 250 people, which by the way, I'm not sure I believe that.
They're trying to create like
only the first 200
false
artificial scarcity, right? They can say that easily. They can say that without it being actually true. Or it could be actually true that, Rachel Smith has an $11,250 budget for these reports. And she's like, look, she's talking to her bosses. She's like, look, if I can get 250 people like Abby to apply to our school, then it's worth $11,250 because, by the way, what's their tuition at Nebraska Law? It's more than that. Even one person for one semester is going to more than pay for all of those report fees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if Abby were going to go to a school like the University of Nebraska, Abby would definitely be going there for free. I'm going to actually look at Nebraska now because I don't want to, I'm just going to fact check myself. Knowing what I know about schools, almost all schools give full ride scholarships. Nebraska is ranked 82 in the country. Are they out there giving full rides? Hell yeah, they're out there giving full rides. Matter of fact, University of Nebraska Law School, based on last year's American Bar Association 509 data, gave 17% of their class full rides and an additional 17% full ride plus stipend.
Wow.
So, how many people pay full price at Nebraska? 16%. So there are twice as many people on a full ride or full ride plus stipend
than paying full. Wow.
Than there are paying full price. And by the way, full price is $35,100 plus $3,500 in fees.
And look, a quarter of the class, or 27%, but close to a quarter of the class is paying more, half or more. So that means the vast majority of people, almost three-fourths, are paying less than half.
Yeah, 73% of the class pays less than half. It's just fake tuition. And this is not a problem specific to University of Nebraska School of Law.
Mm-hmm.
This is a rampant problem in all law schools everywhere. They have a nominal tuition which is just basically fake. They don't actually charge very many people at all that tuition. Here again, what did we add up? 73% of the class pays less than half price.
Yeah.
So it's a totally fake tuition, except for the 16% of suckers who are there on no discount.
What I'd love to know is how many of those 16% of students, apparently around 70 students,
Borrow.
borrow money, but also know what's going on. Do they
I would
have
like to
any
know.
awareness
Me
of
too.
this?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like this should be a disclosure. Like our tuition roll call. By the way, go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships, scroll
Yeah.
down to 82, just
Yeah.
click on Nebraska,
Yep.
and you'll see a visual representation of what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this should be on the ABA 509.
Yeah. When you're accepting, you're like, by the way, okay, this is where you are in the class. Are you aware of this? Yes. Check.
We could create a little like you know how in when you do borrowing, when you borrow student loans, there's
Mm.
like little education things that you have to like click through.
Yeah.
They should be a custom one for every school.
Yeah.
And it should just be like, oh, you're going to borrow money to go to University of Nebraska, College of Law, School of Law, whatever they're calling it. Look at this. Like, where are you on this chart?
Well, our chart, if you put in your LSAT and GPA, it will tell you where you are or would
Shows
likely
you where
be
you are. Yeah.
at Nebraska.
Yeah.
We do the same. Yeah, they just do the same thing. This is where you are. You are not only paying full price, but you are second to last.
You're way back here in the back of the room paying full price. And why are you there? Well, you're there because you have a lower LSAT and lower GPA than all the people that you're going to be competing with for 3 years of grades for the opportunities that you might be trying to get. Where would Abi be, by the way? Abi, just so everybody
They'd be at the
knows,
top.
scored
Yeah.
a 177 on the official LSAT.
Yep.
Come to his free class. We talked about it at the top of the show, but if you want to talk to Abi, who got a 177, you could ask Abi, hey, Abi, are you excited to apply to University of Nebraska School of Law? There's no way he's going to take them up on this offer. I mean, if he
Yeah.
was, he'd be doing it like for laughs to like see what kinds of scholarships they might throw at him.
Mm-hmm. See what his stipend would be. I'd be curious
Yeah.
about
Oh, yeah.
that. How much?
No, all right. He would have to get paid to go to this school. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, maybe she is giving gifts and maybe she's actually willing to give a lot more gifts than that to somebody like Avi,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because she's like, well, we have to prop up our school. We have to keep our numbers. There have to be a certain number of people at this school who actually become practicing official real lawyers.
Mhm.
Because meanwhile, at the bottom of our school, their median LSAT's only 158, Ben.
Yeah.
Let me look at the I want to look at the 25th percentile for this school. 25th percentile LSAT here is 154. 25th percentile GPA is 3.47. Those are the people who are paying full price,
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the people at the top of the class, or even the people in the middle of the class, are paying nothing or less than half. Not
Well,
mad about this school in particular, by the way. I just feel like we should always give that caveat. Not mad about them in particular.
yeah.
We're just mad about the system, that it doesn't seem like they should be able to charge some people infinite times what they're charging other people. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're paying some people to go there, and then other people are borrowing $40,000 a year
Yeah.
to go there.
I'm also curious about this. I mean, while we're looking at this school, right? The fees are $3,500. So tuition is $35,000, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. and fees are 3,500.
Yep.
So 10% of
Yep.
tuition. What? That's a sizable chunk. And so
Yep.
these stipend students might actually be, hey, we're going to give you full tuition. That's 35,000. And then we're going to give you a stipend of 1,000 and still charge them 2,500.
I don't think so. I thought that we had just recently learned.
Yeah. What's the rule exactly?
I think the rule is that you're not labeled full tuition unless the fees are covered.
I thought it
Remember,
was
because
the
somebody was
opposite.
I don't think
Oh,
so, because people were suggesting, hey, so that means that if somebody can tell you that they're giving you a full tuition scholarship, but if it doesn't cover the fees, then it doesn't show up on the 509 as full tuition. So I actually think it's worse than this.
oh,
I
wow.
think that full tuition has to cover fees. So I think that you've got 34% of the class that's paying no tuition and no fee.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So,
What it
yeah,
means is that the people who are getting more than half, but not full, might actually be getting full tuition
they might be getting full and then, well,
and just not
10%.
the fees.
Yeah. Still
Right.
10%.
So it could be
Yeah.
even worse than what we think.
Yeah.
No,
No, no,
but I mean,
you're right.
it
Here.
could cover
Yeah.
almost all the fees, but not quite all the fees.
Mm,
Right. So it could be like, well, yeah, there's $50 that you're going to have to pay.
yep.
And then they show up on the 509 as more than half
More than
instead of showing up
full.
on the 509 as full.
Yeah.
But they could still write a letter to the student saying you were giving you a full tuition scholarship because it covers full tuition. It's just that that's not how it's going to get reported on the ABA 509.
Hmm.
If they're following the new rules, which are now spelled out on the 509, right?
Yeah, yeah. Let me read the rules because I found
Okay.
them here, right here. It says the term full tuition scholarships refers to scholarships that cover tuition and mandatory fees. That's
Yep.
exactly what you were saying. The
Yep.
term more than full tuition refers to scholarships that cover more than tuition and mandatory fees. So
Yeah.
all that's covered, which makes sense. I mean, geez, if you don't include fees, this
Yeah.
shenanigans goes both ways, right? Because fees are
Right.
just tuition.
Right. Yeah. It allows schools some cover because
Yeah.
schools like to say, "Oh no, we don't really give we give very few full tuition scholarships." And you look at their 509 and it's like, "Oh yeah, there's only
Yeah, yeah.
2% full
Yeah, yeah.
tuition scholarships."
But the
Well, yeah, but they could be writing letters to people saying, "Hey, we're going to give you a full tuition scholarship." But if it doesn't cover the fees, then it doesn't have to show up on the 509 as a full
yeah,
tuition scholarship.
that's the real problem. That would be part of that disclosure checkout that you were talking about. That would
Before
need to
you
be,
can get approved for the loan, before the school can actually get paid,
yeah.
the US Department of Education says, "Hey, have you looked at this roll call tool?
Do
Where do you fall? Where is your actual offer on this roll call tool?"
if you were given a full tuition scholarship according to the school, but not covered, they didn't cover your fees for Nebraska, it
Yeah.
would have to say, do you acknowledge that you're paying 10% of tuition?
Yeah. Yeah, of
'Cause
the actual required tuition and fees to go to this
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Do you acknowledge that your full tuition offer is not actually full tuition?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's move on. Law schools are feeling festive, Ben.
Yeah. Okay.
Penn State sent Braden a Happy New Year email with a prompt to pay his seat deposit. You want to take a look at that?
Yeah, it says, Happy New Year, Braden. Best wishes. I like that this email's a lot shorter, so I will give it that.
Yeah.
It's one, maybe two, three sentences. Best wishes for a year of achievements and adventures. We hope to see you on campus this spring.
Happy 2025 exclamation point.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just paused. Why this spring?
Probably because they're also offering Braden to come visit campus. I mean, this is not in today's email, or today's agenda, but we had last week or a couple weeks ago, we saw Arizona State offering people to pay their travel expenses up to like $1,000 to go visit Arizona State. That's just how thirsty they are for you to go to their school.
Yeah.
They're rolling out the red carpet because they're either they need your scores or they're going to try to charge you a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's just selling.
Just selling. So this email ends, sincerely, Penn State Dickinson Law School admissions team. And then there are 3 buttons. The first one is deposit.
Yeah, he applied, and now they're like, okay, we got to get our hooks in. So like
Yep.
every opportunity, we're going to try to get you to, we're going to try to get you
To lock in.
to sign on the bottom line. This reminds me, I mean, it's not just in law school that this happens. My niece Haley is a senior in high school, and she has applied broadly to schools in California.
Mm.
And she just got an email the other day from San Francisco State
Mm-hmm.
University,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, congratulating her on her admissions. And then as part of the email, it said, "As of today, you are now a Gator," because that's their mascot.
Change her identity.
You're now a Gator. Which,
Yeah.
by the way, how the fuck did San Francisco become the Gators?
There
No
aren't gators.
alligators in California. What? Um,
Weird. Yeah.
Never thought about that one. But anyway, they're telling her that she is a Gator. I was like,
Mm.
oh, well, that's the old assumed close, where they're
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you applied. So obviously, you came and looked at the car. So you're obviously buying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want the bow on it or not?
Yeah.
Are you going to be paying cash or are you going to be borrowing? You know, how are you going to finance this purchase that you're definitely making? And
Yeah.
whoa, I'm not making it. Are you kidding me? I took it for a test drive. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
I've already bought it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what all these admissions folk are out there doing. They're just trying to make the sales. Fordham apparently sent team member Rachel a Christmas card that was signed by the entire admissions team.
Okay. And then Georgetown sent Eric 2 identical Christmas cards signed by Dean Kornblatt. Oops.
Just wanted to make sure he got it.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh man. Well, it's all fun and games, right? What we're really trying to do is to like flip applicants' perspectives
That
so that they
they're- yeah.
understand that it's a buyer's market. I mean, these people are just like they are desperate for you to go to their school,
Yep.
especially if you have the right LSAT and the right GPA. They are desperate, and they're going to roll out the red carpet, and then they're going to do all these shenanigans to try to make you feel special.
Yeah. It's like they want you to feel like you're in a desert, desperate for the water that they can provide. But
Yeah.
the reality is, they're the ones in the desert, and they are thirsty for your application and your
Oh,
deposit.
they're staring at an empty class. I mean, they got to put butts in those seats. If they
Yeah.
don't put butts in the seats, that's an expiring asset.
Mm-hmm.
They have to sell seats. And they have to give away a certain number of seats to prop up their numbers so that they can then sell enough seats
the remaining. Yeah.
to prop up the, overly exorbitant salaries of the administrators and the faculty and all the staff, and pay for their ridiculous huge buildings that, monuments to themselves that they have built.
And
All
if you, sorry, I should say one more thing about this,
Yeah.
and that is that like some schools are actually losing money because of this game.
Say more.
I can't remember which school it was, but we were reading that article recently about a school that was profitable until they decided to play this game
Yep.
and pay for as many high LSAT GPA students or applicants as they could. And
Yep.
they flipped a law school that was making money for their university to one that was actually
Yep.
draining the university of funds.
Yep.
So they're not necessarily savvy at this. They are just desperate
Well,
to try to.
but they're also playing a longer game. I mean, the truth is they change their strategy from year to year to year.
Mhm.
Some years they're like, oh shit, our ranking has fallen. Our alumni are getting pissed. We need to prop up the ranking.
Yeah.
So they go out and give a ton of scholarships, attract a bunch of high LSAT, high GPA kids, boost their ranking. Other
then-
years, they're
yeah.
like, oh, we got to capitalize on this high ranking. We this year, the head of the whole university has said, you need to be profitable.
No, and that makes sense if you're doing it right, and then quickly recovering from that. But this school, from that, I wish I remember which school it was, but I just remember from that article, it sounded like
I
a
think it
lot
was
of
Arizona. It was one
oh,
of the Arizona schools. Yeah. And it was like, holy shit. Like they
like
really
falling apart.
flipped it where they,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. They just like put themselves in the red because they were so desperately trying to climb the rankings. And of course they do, they
yeah,
did climb the rankings, but then it's like, oh, also we're now out of money.
yeah. And people
So,
are quitting.
well, just the next thing they do is then they have to not give scholarships. And so then inevitably they're going to plummet in the rankings
Yeah.
once they stop playing the game. I mean, I think a more sensible approach would be to kind of play the game every year.
Yes. Yeah. And some schools are doing this. They're it's like insurance. They're tracking exactly
Yeah.
how much they can pay
Yeah.
to win.
And that is what a savvy school would do in this system.
Hmm.
But the system is wildly broken because the
Mm.
result of that system is that they end up charging the least qualified students more for worse outcomes.
Mhm.
The high qualified applicants go for free and kick ass in the grade competition and get the best jobs.
Yep.
The least qualified applicants borrow all the money to go there, get their ass kicked in the grade competition, get the worst job outcomes.
Yeah. And we've talked about that so much, but the irony is, as you say that yet again, that's the big story. You want to talk about access, justice, equity,
Yeah.
inclusion? That's literally making the problem 10 times worse,
Yeah.
100,
And
100 times
the
worse.
and the schools love talking about access and justice and blah blah blah. They love the diversity pipeline initiatives and but all they're really doing is like broadening their market so that they can sell overly priced JDs to more people.
Mhm.
The
In a
actual
biased way,
yeah,
in a
right.
way that's literally
Yes.
the opposite of the bias they claim
Yes.
to be correcting.
Because the scholarships tend to go to richer, whiter people.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, this next email for a new topic is from Abby.
Abby says, "Hi guys, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on online and hybrid law school options. I'm really looking into these options because I will have to attend part-time so I can work. I'm also struggling because the closest part-time schools to me are still over an hour away. My goal school is George Mason in Arlington, Virginia, but this school has a 14% acceptance rate. My next would be GW, but I'm still not extremely confident I would get in. So I've been looking at out of state online options. I'm curious to know your opinions on the online options."
I mean, uh, I've always thought that you should treat them the same as the in person options. What's the price you're going to have to pay? And what's the ranking for the school?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change the quality of the legal education at all.
Yeah.
Actually, as someone who does quasi legal education online as an LSAT teacher, I'm here to tell you that the educational outcomes are better online than they were in person. I mean, scoreboard shows, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
People's scores improve now more than they used to. So, whatever we're doing online works better than what we were doing in person. And it stands to reason because commuting is gone. Bathroom breaks, gone. Jostling for seats, gone. Bad seats in the back of the classroom, gone. There's just a million reasons why online education is better for adult learners.
Mhm.
Anyway, the quality of law schools is only tangentially related to the quality of legal education. I mean, the ranking of law schools is not
Yeah.
really like correlated with better legal education. It's more just like, well, they admit higher LSAT, higher GPA. So then it looks like they're doing better legal education, but really they just have better students.
Mhm.
So I would think that online, out of state, I would think that I would presume that they are just as good, if not better, from an actual legal education standpoint. My question would be, are they perceived that way by whatever employers you're looking at, Abby?
Wait, do you think employers would even know? If you get an
Yeah.
online degree from a school, I think you just have a JD from that school.
Yeah, true, true. I guess I was thinking about schools that like don't really have an in-person
Mm,
footprint as like maybe online only schools or something like that might be
sure, sure.
people are like, "What? I've never heard of that school." I
Yeah.
think another problem could be that it's like, "Wait, but you're clearly somebody in the DC, Virginia area.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do you have a degree from St. Louis or whatever?"
Mm,
I could see that potentially being a problem for employers where they're just like, well, wait a second. I know George Mason. I
mhm,
know GW.
mhm.
What I don't know is some other school from some other place. So I would ask, I mean, what kind of a lawyer are you going to be, Abby? And I think for the majority of law jobs, it just doesn't even matter anyway.
Yeah.
You want to be a public defender? You want to be a prosecutor? You want to be work in some small firm? Solo practice, like there's just a million lawyer jobs that don't require you to go to any kind of prestigious school. So, especially for an adult person who's going to work and go to school part time, I would prefer to go online. Would you prefer to
Yeah.
go online?
Yeah. I mean, you can skip all the things you said earlier.
And wear your pajamas.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier. You can manage your kids while also doing your schoolwork.
Mhm.
So much. You could be running loads of laundry while you're also listening to your lecture.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different things that you could do if you do online education. So I give you my full endorsement, Abby, to investigate that. Yeah, the only caveat would be if it's like some particular law firm and that law firm is like, no, we don't hire from that school.
Yeah,
Word of the
and
week?
well, sorry, one other caveat, and that is
Yeah.
that even if online education is better, it's not worth anymore. So make sure you're paying the right price. I'm worried about people who are like, "Oh, I'm going to do online education." There's not that many options, and so then they don't apply
I have to
broadly, and
pay
they
for it. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, presumably they should be able to offer that at a lower price. I mean, we cut our prices when we went online. When we
yeah,
when we stopped having to book classroom space, pay for facilities, next thing you know, it became way cheaper to study. It's just cheaper to study in Zoom than it is to study in a real classroom.
yeah,
So, yeah, I would hope that we're going to see some value priced options for online education.
yeah,
But apply broadly, Abby, see what kinds of offers you get. The scholarship games, really change the math on how much you're paying for law school. Last item is from an Ask Button ticket. This is word of the week, by the way. And we have a quote here from Test 128, Passage 2.
Okay, it says the producer, like all the figures in this film, often seems less a distinct individual than a projection of Bates' personal self recriminations. This
So I would
effectively,
stop there before,
yeah.
the word of the week is going to be in the next sentence.
Hmm, hmm.
But we do have to understand everything. Like context is going to matter a lot for trying to figure out what words mean, unfamiliar words.
Hmm.
So this seems like a criticism.
Yeah. Or, well,
I mean, there's a producer in the film, and it says the producer, like all the figures in the film, doesn't
yeah.
seem that much like a distinct individual. It's more a projection of Bates's personal self-recriminations. So
Wow.
it's like instead of having real characters, this is just Bates beating himself up. Like this
Hmm.
producer, you don't even seem like a real person. You're just Bates beating himself up.
One of his maybe sub personalities or something, or flaws.
An aspect of Bates. This is
Yeah.
just Bates telling on himself, essentially. All these characters are just Bates telling on himself.
Yep.
Okay.
This effectively reinforces the charge of solipsism,
I would say solipsism.
solipsism, okay, with which Bates, the unstable and demoralized artist, indicts himself.
Yeah. So, if you would have given me solipsism independent of all this context, I don't know I don't, that's kind of an unfamiliar word to me. I don't know that I even would have had a guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But solipsism in this context, I mean, what are we talking about? What is Bates doing here?
Making all the characters a projection of some aspect of himself.
Yeah. So it's like, it seems like it means narcissism or self reflectiveness or projection. I mean, it actually used the word projection.
Yep.
So this is like, it just seems like solipsism has to mean something along the lines of making it all about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally from context. That has nothing to do with me knowing the word. That's just totally from context.
Mm-hmm.
Did we get it right?
I don't know. Let's see. Okay, the definition is a theory holding that the self can know nothing but its own modifications and that the self is the only existent thing. Okay, that's a long definition. How about also extreme egocentrism?
It is far less important. Like individual vocabulary words
Yeah.
are far less important on this test than people make them out to be.
Yeah.
People all the time are like, well, how could I possibly have understood this if I didn't understand the word solipsism?
Yep.
Well, you could literally cross that out and just put something there, put a blank there,
Yeah.
and you still know what goes in the blank because it's just like I knew it from the previous sentence
Yeah.
and I know it from that sentence. It's Bates indicting himself. Previous sentence had said, oh, yeah, all the characters in the film are just projections of Bates's own self-recriminations. So Bates dunking on himself, essentially. It's Bates making it all about himself. And yeah, we've got a second definition here of solipsism as extreme egocentrism. Seems like we were able to get that one completely from context.
Cool.
Thanks for putting that in an Ask ticket.
Yeah. Thank you. Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. You can also check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 489 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for listening.